Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. Something a little bit different today. I'm going to do a little news video, something where we'll sit down and we'll talk about a couple of bits of news that have been floating around the Everton atmosphere over the last day or so, last couple of days. I used to do these videos every Friday. And then because we entered the period of, nothingness really, and last season became so difficult, and, we were playing games left, right and centre, and when we weren't playing games, we didn't really want to think or talk about Everton. I sort of stopped doing it, and it was basically a weekly occurrence where I'd sit down, I'd do a little video, 15, 20 minutes long, just talking about the latest news, giving my 10 pence worth, and having a little bit of a chat about it. So I thought, you know what? Let's bring it back. Let's sit down. Let's have a bit of a chat. It won't be a long video by any sense of the imagination. It'll be a short one and snappy, but just going over some of the latest bits and bobs going on at the moment. If you enjoy this type of thing, obviously it is a little bit different to the, in-depth reviews and previews that we usually do on the channel. And it's a video format for the start, which of course means that there's no live comments, and it of course means that any point you want to have on the topics we talk about will be in the YouTube comments, and I'll be getting involved with as many of them as I can as well. But if you enjoy this type of video, if you enjoy this type of idea, if you enjoy this type of content, then please do let me know, and I will do as many of these as possible, really. I'm not going to sit here and say I'll do one every week or I'll do one on a certain day, because there might be some days where there's just not much news going on, and there might be other days where there's a lot of news. So I'm going to try and do them as frequently and as often as possible, but obviously only if you enjoy them. You might say, no Cam, I'm not interested, I'd rather you just come on a live stream and rant and rave. Or you might say, do you know what, I actually don't mind this. So we're going to jump straight into it. We are going to talk about a couple of things today. I want to talk about the World Cup, the upcoming World Cup. I think most of the World Cup squads have been released today, or certainly over the last couple of days or so. I think today was the last day that nations could release their official 26-man World Cup squad. So we've had, obviously, a couple of Everton players being announced as being called up for their national team. So we're going to go over that. And I also want to talk about Dominic Calvert-Lewin, because there have been a couple of reports from very reliable journalists, shall we say, regarding Dom's injuries, around about how long he's going to be out for, and what it means for Dominic Calvert-Lewin in the future of Everton Football Club. But let's just jump straight into it. We are going to talk about the World Cup firstly, and I think the biggest talking point of today, and the biggest sort of watch point of today in terms of the nation, not so much me, because I'm not massive on England or the upcoming World Cup for many reasons, but there was a lot of eyes watching England's social media pages at 2 o'clock this afternoon, was it 3 o'clock this afternoon, whenever it was, eagerly awaiting Gareth Southgate's 26-man squad for the upcoming World Cup. And we found out during that announcement that Everton players Jordan Pickford and Conor Cody will be on the plane to Qatar within the next couple of weeks or so to represent their country. Two names that I think we all pretty much expected, to be perfectly honest with you. Jordan Pickford was absolutely nailed on, wasn't he? There was only ever going to be one reason Jordan Pickford was kept out of this squad, and it would have been through injury, and obviously he's not had any injury. And even on Conor Cody's case, I feel like Conor Cody was pretty much guaranteed as well. I remember watching an interview a couple of years ago. I can't remember who it was, but it was with someone who's in and around that England camp. And I remember them talking so fondly about Conor Cody and just how important he is as a personality and a leader to have around that dressing room, even though he's unlikely to play, for in that World Cup, or maybe he will play. I don't know. Look, at the end of the day, Harry Maguire's one of England's, starting centre-halves, and he's not even starting for Manchester United at the moment. So who knows? Maybe Conor Cody will get his opportunity. But even if he doesn't, I think the fact that in recent years there haven't been any, certainly not many, if any, England national squads, whether it be for Euros or whether it be for international friendlies, in which Conor Cody has not been involved in, and there's, as I said, there's plenty of reasons for that. Clearly his personality, clearly his leadership, and just overall having him as a person around the dressing room is a benefit for for Gareth Southgate in England, and that is as clear to see as day, and we all know that because it's the exact same effect that Conor Cody has at Everton Football Club. We obviously get to see the benefits of him as an actual footballer and as a defender as well. I think Gareth Southgate would be silly to not try and use him in this tournament because of how good he has been this season. But obviously, you know, we all know how good of a person he is, how much of a leader he is, how good of a personality he is. And one thing I noticed with Conor Cody, and I don't mind admitting this because I'm quite honest and I'll always be honest on this channel, but every time England go away, and I'm not I'm not big on England, I'm not big on the national team, I'm not big on the patriotic side of it, I'm not big on this World Cup, I'm not really that interested, but every time England go away, whether it be for the World Cup or Euros or international friendlies, the England official YouTube channel always puts these sort of behind the scenes video up. It's like the tunnel access ones that Everton put up. Manchester City started doing it back in the day where they'd put tunnel access videos up, and I'm really interested in those videos. I used to watch the Manchester City ones every week, I obviously watch the Everton ones every week, and I watch the England ones. And I remember you know, a year ago, a couple of years ago, you know, even months ago before Conor Cody joined Everton, watching these England videos and seeing just how big of a personality Conor Cody is. He's always in them, putting his arm around players, smiling, talking to players, having good conversation. And, you know, I can't lie, at the time I used to watch it and think, I really want to like this lad, but he doesn't play for Everton. And, you know, again, as we all would have said at one point, he's a cop-out. But then obviously the move happened in the summer. He very clearly stated multiple times that he's got no interest in Liverpool Football Club. His only interest is Everton. And it almost feels like then, right, okay, we can like him now. And he is a really likeable fella. And as I said, even before he joined Everton, I remember specifically watching those England videos and seeing him constantly, you know, put his arm around people, having a laugh, having a joke. He just seems like a really nice fella. I've never met him, but he seems like a really nice fella. And it's clear that that has a positive impact on the England team. Jordan, as I said, look, I'm not going to sit here and go into the Jordan Pickford conversation because you know, I'm preaching to the church here, aren't I, really, in terms of this being an Everton fan channel, and I don't think there's many Evertonians out there that would sit and say Jordan Pickford shouldn't be England's number one. I think the only reason we would say that is through fear of him getting an injury and maybe selfishness comes into play with Everton, is to state that maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing if he wasn't England's number one. For me, he is England's best keeper by a distance. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Nick Pope is on brilliant form at the moment with Newcastle, and Aaron Ramsdale, to be fair, is on brilliant form with Arsenal. And, you know, if you are an uneducated football fan who gets their football education through FIFA 23 and certain YouTube streamers and certain Twitter pages, then you might look at it and go, well, why should Pickford get in there? Because, you know, Ramsdale's doing well and Pope's doing well. But really, if you know anything about football, you will know that Jordan Pickford is the better goalkeeper, and almost single-handedly won England the Euros in the summer, keeping them in the penalty shootout on a couple of occasions. So, yeah, we don't need to have the Jordan Pickford conversation. We all know why he's there, and I'm pretty confident in saying he will be the number one keeper for the tournament as well. One player I do want to quickly mention before we move on from England is James Tarkowski. Now, I do think it's a little bit harsh that Tarky has been left out of the conversation, not of the conversation, of the squad. I'm not in any way, shape or form surprised, because a couple of players have been left out of the squad that I think are quite unlucky. For Fikayo Tomori, who obviously is over in Italy playing for AC Milan, is been, you know, in really good form since joining them. He's been left out of the squad. Tammy Abraham has been left out of the squad, again, over in Italy playing for Roma. You know, and there's a couple of other players that have missed out that you would definitely make arguments for deserving to be in there. Now, I don't understand why England fans are making the argument against Conor Cody being in there. Once again, these people have not got a clue about football. I don't know why the argument isn't about Harry Maguire, who doesn't even start for his, you know, is the club he plays for, and he's the captain of that club, and he doesn't even start for them. I don't know why we aren't focusing on why he's in the squad opposed to why Conor Cody, who plays every week and is Everton's best player there or thereabouts every week. So that's a completely separate point. But I do think that James Tarkowski is unlucky to have not been chosen. Because, as I said, if it's not Conor Cody, who is Everton's best player every week, it's James Tarkowski. And whilst I'm not surprised, because he's not a big name, he's not a fancy name, and he doesn't play for one of the big six, and he's not standing out week in, week out, the fact of the matter is, statistically, the fact of the matter is, he's one of the best centre-halves in Europe. On form, on ability, he's one of the best centre-halves in Europe. So, judging off that, and the fact that he's playing week in, week out for Everton, he should be in this squad without a shadow of a doubt. And I do feel a little bit sorry for Tarky, because I don't think there's much more he could have done to have been in this squad. And there was definitely rumours over the last week or so suggesting that he could be in there. Gareth Southgate went to watch the game against Palace, and where he was unbelievable. You know, if there was absolutely no chance of him being in the squad, then you'd sit here and go, well, he's unlucky, but, he wouldn't have got his hopes up. But I do fear that he may have been, thinking, maybe I'll get in, maybe I won't get in. I'm not sure. I don't think it will affect him, because ultimately he's mature, he's an adult, he's 29 years old. I'm sure he'll just brush it off and go, it is what it is. But I do think he's a little bit unlucky, because he's been excellent this season, and he's certainly been better than, I'd say, 2, 3, maybe even 4 of those centre-backs that have been, or those defenders that have been picked for England. But then again, we can only play centre-half, and maybe that was part of Gareth Southgate's process. In other news, Amadou Onana has been called up for the Belgium squad for the World Cup. Again, no real surprise there. Massive congratulations to Amadou Onana. Obviously, he is liked massively by Belgian manager and former Everton manager Roberto Martinez. Former Everton manager Roberto Martinez, who actually advised Amadou Onana to join Everton in the summer. So, absolutely no surprise that he is in the squad. And Idrissa Gana Gueye will also be heading to Qatar in Senegal's 26-man squad as well. That was confirmed. He's currently on 96 caps for Senegal, and he could overtake Henry Camara, who's on 98, to become Senegal's most capped international if he features in their 3 group stage games, which I'm sure he will as well. So massive congratulations to Ghana and Onana, and of course to Conor Cody and Jordan Pickford for their call-ups. Commiserations go to James Tarkowski and I suppose you could say Anthony Gordon and Tom Davis and Damari Gray and Dominic Calvert-Lewin and anybody else that may have been in the conversation, but certainly Tarkowski, because I think he was one that deserved to be there and unfortunately wasn't there. Anyway, moving on. We are going to have a little bit of a conversation about Dominic Calvert-Lewin. There was a report today in the Daily Mail, which it was written by Paul Joyce, who, of course, is an extremely reliable source when it comes to these types of things. And that report wrote, Dominic Calvert-Lewin has sustained a dislocated shoulder as well as a hamstring injury. The striker will see a specialist in the next 24 hours for the shoulder injury, and Calvert-Lewin first suffered the shoulder injury in Everton's 1-0 defeat to Newcastle. So he's been playing with this for quite some time. Obviously, the 1-0 defeat to Newcastle was before the Palace game, in which he scored in and was brilliant in, before Fulham, and then, of course, before the game against Leicester, in which he was taken off with the hamstring injury. I'm not going to sit here and put a time frame on when Dominic Calvert-Lewin will be back. Obviously, he will miss the game on the weekend. I think that goes without saying. And I don't think he was ever getting in that World Cup squad anyway, so I don't think he'll be too disappointed about that. He probably will be, because he'd want to go. And again, after the Palace game, he was asked a question about the World Cup, which I felt was far too premature and a little bit... I just don't think it was right. I don't think it was right for whoever it was to ask a question about the World Cup when the lad had one good game in the last 7-8 months or whatever it is. Well, certainly since Palace at home last season, and has played for 4 or 5 games in the last 7 months because of his injury issues. I don't think it was fair to look at him after one good game and say, are you looking at the World Cup squad? Because maybe that puts that idea in his head and then leaves him with ultimate disappointment. I don't want to sit here and put a time frame on the injury, because I'm not a doctor and I'm not the specialist that Dominic Calvert-Lewin will see over the next day or so. If you Google a dislocated shoulder and how long that takes to recover from, it would suggest between 12 to 16 weeks. Again, as I said, we don't know the severity of it, and we don't know whether that information is completely correct, so I'm not going to sit here and say that's the time frame. However, what we do know is he will be out for the game on the weekend, and obviously we've then got the World Cup break. Whether or not he'll be back for Boxing Day is a completely different question, and I'm sure if it's a long-term injury, then he will not be. Look, firstly, I want to say I feel really sorry for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I understand the frustration. I understand the upset. I understand the the fume, or the sort of the attitude of, oh, again another injury, he's this, he's that, he's the other, he's useless, he's whatever. I get all of that, because really and truly our season lies on Dominic Calvert-Lewin being fit or not, because we know Neil Maupay isn't good enough to play in that role that Dom plays in. Now, I think Frank Lampard, this will be the real test as to whether or not Frank Lampard is good enough to take Everton forward or not, is how he now adapts to another long-term Dominic Calvert-Lewin injury, and the way he has to adapt, certainly before the January transfer window, is to completely change the style of play, because we cannot continue with this system of lumping the ball up and, hoping that there will be a striker at the other end of the pitch to take it down, to control it, and to bully a defender, because Neil Maupay simply won't do that. And Neil Maupay is absolutely useless in that role. So the manager now has to change the system in order to suit Neil Maupay and Neil Maupay's strengths. Otherwise, I don't think Everton will be very successful over the next few games. Obviously, we've got the World Cup break, which will help us, and will be a nice break from Everton. But I get the frustration, I get the upset, I get the anger with it. I won't sit here and say, oh, he's useless, get rid of him, he's this, that, and the other, because I do feel sorry for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I really, really do, because ultimately Dom picked up an injury, at the beginning of last season, before the start of last season, and fourth game into last season, he picked up an injury, didn't he? Played the first 3 games. In fact, it was before the start of last season, because he played the first 3 games with a broken toe, and scored in the first 3, and then through having the broken toe, ended up picking up another injury. I think it was his thigh or his quad or something like that, and then since then, he's just been absolutely riddled with injury after injury after injury. And it's never just one little injury, or one injury here, one injury there. It's usually 2 injuries at a time, 2 body parts at a time, 2, quite serious injuries at once. And as we see in here, he's got a dislocated shoulder. That didn't keep him out. He still persisted through it, still played through it. And now he's got a hamstring injury, as to which we don't know, how long he would have been out with that hamstring injury, or how serious that is. But the dislocated shoulder, of course, is going to keep him out. As I said, I refuse to sit here and do the whole, oh, he's useless, get rid of him, he's a cock, he's this, he's that, he's the other, because I really feel sorry for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and it's never a player's fault that they get injuries, because injuries, even if there's things to prevent them, even if there's mitigating circumstances, even if there's reasons as to why he may be picking up these injuries, it's not his fault he's picking up these injuries. He's not going out on purpose to be injured, is he? I've seen a couple of people today toying with the idea that maybe since he's put all of the muscle on, which obviously he did during Carlo Ancelotti's season, he got a lot bigger, he got a lot stockier, he filled out a lot more, he had a great season, and then since then, he seemed to get injury after injury after injury. So maybe that has some form of correlation as to all of a sudden he's gotten bigger and putting a lot of muscle on and a lot more, he's filled out a lot more, and in turn he's picking up a lot more injuries that are keeping him out. I don't know. Again, I'm not an expert in this field, so I can't sit here and say that's definitely the reason. One thing I would say is I think Everton have now got to prepare for the future without Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And I don't necessarily think that's just because he's got injuries. I think Everton should have been and have to be preparing for the future without Dominic Calvert-Lewin anyway, for a couple of reasons, really. There's only 3 outcomes of what Dominic Calvert-Lewin could have been this season. He could have been absolutely unbelievable and on fire and brilliant, and we'd have to prepare for a future without him, because he'd be being linked to clubs left, right and centre, and we'd probably have to sell him. He would not be injured, play every week and not be very good, and we'd have to prepare for the future without him, because he wouldn't be doing what we need him to do, and we need to replace him. Or the situation that we're currently in is that we're not seeing him enough. He's not fit enough when we need him to be. He's not available. He's picking up injuries constantly, and therefore, as I said, for me, I don't think it's a case of get rid of him, he's a crock, he's useless, but I do think it's a case of now preparing for the future without Dominic Calvert-Lewin, because we simply cannot rely on a player who is unreliable. It was the exact same with Yerry Mina. I absolutely love Yerry Mina, love him to bits. I think his personality is brilliant. I think when he's fit, he's one of the best centre-halves in world football, and he shows that when he's fit. He's absolutely excellent for Everton. Reality is, he's so unreliable. He's not fit anywhere near as much as we need him to be, and therefore we had to change something in the summer. We went out, we brought in Tarkowski and Cody, and now there's no reliance on Yerry Mina. If he's fit and he's there, great. He's an option, he can be used, but if he's not fit and he's not there, it's not the end of the world. I feel like we're in a similar situation with Dominic Calvert-Lewin now. Now, Yerry Mina, I think, will leave Everton over the next 6 months, probably in January, and whether or not that would be the case with Dom, I don't know. But the reality is we held a lot of our hope on Dominic Calvert-Lewin this season, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin being fit and Dominic Calvert-Lewin being available. We sold our only other goal scorer in Richarlison. We didn't bring in any goals in terms of the attack. We brought in another striker in Neil Maupay, who isn't a prolific goal scorer, and even if he was a prolific goal scorer, we're not playing to his strength. So it was very, very clear that if you were to sit down this season, and I'm not saying we all held our whole season on just Dominic Calvert-Lewin, because obviously Connor Cody, James Tarkowski, Jordan Pickford, these players play a massive part as well. But in terms of goals and attacking and winning games of football, because you've got to score goals to win games of football, it was all pinned on Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And that for me was irresponsible, that for me was silly, and that for me was a massive risk, considering the injury-ridden season that he had last season. Now, I've listened to Frank Lampard talking about Dom, and I think he said a couple of times, pre-season, he was amazing, he was great, he was the fittest I've ever seen him, he was brilliant, and maybe that's where, a little bit of, that's where Everton maybe made a little bit of a mistake, maybe we're a little bit naive, as they seen how fit he was in pre-season, they seen how well he was doing, and they went, he'd be alright this season, he won't pick up injuries. First game of the season, he's out with an injury, and now, he was out for however long, 2 months, come back, played a couple of games, and now he's going to be out for, another period of time. Okay, we've got the World Cup, and I get that, but that doesn't mean that he won't return after the World Cup, pick up another injury, and then be out for the most important months of the season when we really, really need them. And trust me, without Dominic Calvert-Lewin, or a striker that can score goals, hence why there's so much importance on the January transfer window, I don't really know how we comfortably stay in this division. Let's say that. I think we were in for another fight. So, I feel sorry for Dom, and of course, it goes without saying, I wish Dominic Calvert-Lewin the very, very best and a very, very speedy recovery. And I've got no issue with him staying at the football club. I've got no issue with still believing in him, and when he's fit, still giving him that chance. But I do think Everton now have to make preparations for the future without Dominic Calvert-Lewin, because that unreliability of not knowing when he's going to be fit or not, we can't just pin our hopes on. We can have him there as an option, a bit like Yerry Mina, when he comes back, and then the club can decide what they want to do with him in terms of a new contract when we're at that point. But we need another striker now who we can look at, and we know A is going to score goals every week, and B is going to be there fitness-wise and reliability-wise. I think that's fair. I think, I can't sit here and say, we'll just have to wait until he's fit again. And I don't want us to go out and buy a makeshift striker in January who can step in, who isn't very good, but will step in and you might win 1 out of 5 games. We need to go out and buy somebody that is better than Dominic Calvert-Lewin. It's unfortunate, it's sad, and it's upsetting for Dom because it's not his fault, but ultimately we can't sit here and go, we don't really want to upset Dom, so we'll just get relegated because we can't score goals, but then he'll come back and he'll play 2 games, then he'll be out for another 6 months. No, I think, unfortunately, we have to start prepping for a life without Dom, unfortunately, and people might disagree, and if you do disagree, then please let me know. I'm really, really interested to find out. It's sad. It is sad, but ultimately we need somebody we can rely on, and we need somebody that's going to score goals. We needed another striker anyway, to be fair. Even if Dom was fit and didn't have this injury, we needed another striker in January, but now it is completely intensified. It really, really is. Anyway, we are going to leave it there. If you have enjoyed this little video, please do let me know. We've spoken about the World Cup squad. We've spoken about James Tarkowski. We've spoken about Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Let me know your thoughts on everything we've spoken about in the comment section down below. If you enjoy this type of content, little videos here and there, please do let me know, and we will definitely release more of these as and when news comes out. But big thank you all for watching. Please leave a like if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Let me know your thoughts on all of the stuff we've spoken about in the comments, and we'll see you later.